Hello my friends, welcome back. A try and fly with a brand new aircraft just arrived 2 days ago. It's the AEROSOFT Airbus A330-300, the A333, and yeah, we are standing here in Munich at our usual airport for try and flies of large aircraft. It's position 185 in the Terminal 1 area. As you can see, this is the is it Flight Tampa or I actually forgot who made Munich in pre-prepared. Doesn't really matter. It's a decent scenery. It's quite nice. Okay. Yeah, the AEROSOFT Airbus, the new one. Yeah, I wanted to start recording the try and fly yesterday when I got it, but unfortunately the Airbus didn't really want to play with me, so I had a number of issues, different types, like CTDs, crash to desktop, problems with the EFB. Oh yeah, I forget. Munich is one of those demo airports for the GSX-2, where all the people are walking in. Yeah, what else did I have? Yeah, not running engines. I hope we won't have that today. Lights that aren't really very bright. Some issues with the PBR textures causing problems with dark cockpit. You will see how that looks. I've made some modifications in order to let's say have a decent cockpit without having to turn off all my shaders, the PTA and all that. According to AEROSOFT though, you have to turn it off. Yeah, they have made these new textures, and they say you shouldn't run modified renderers and things like that and shaders. Well, I'm not going to comment that now. So I decided to run with these slightly darker renditions. Outside, you won't see any problem or any difference. The other problem I have is my PC with its relatively old i7 4 something generation and the 1050 Ti that I have are the absolute minimum, also from the graphic memory and all that. They are the absolute minimum that AEROSOFT posts for this Airbus. And although the Airbus actually performs reasonably well when it comes to the frames, I had to actually scale down my graphic settings somewhat in order to have performance that stays over 20. Actually, that I can change. That has no impact. 2 times SSAA can cause, which is the lowest of the SSAA by the way, can cause the bus to go under 20 frames per second. And they say that you should have at least 20 frames per second. So I'll leave it like this. During the day it's not so bad, but at night with rain and clouds and all that, which is part of this scenario, yeah, well, performance isn't too good. So it stays on 2 times SSAA. Unfortunately, I can see a lot of crooked lines and a lot of flickering. Yeah, but I have to live with it, I suppose. The other thing that is important is that you have HDR lighting enabled. And yeah, actually one thing I did, I turned down the bloom to 0 and I increased the brightness, and I actually decreased the saturation a little bit. That will help with some issues with the darkness and all. Dynamic reflections I have off. As I say, I'm limit This is a borderline sort of a setup here, so I turn many of the things that could draw frames, I turn that off. Yeah, let's load the 4K textures. Now, crooked lines and all that, yes, unfortunately. I have to live with that. But apart from that, I mean, as usual with Microsoft, oops, the... yeah. The rendition of the outer model is actually quite good. As you can see, we have GSX, which automatically finds everything it needs to find. Let us go up a bit. Yeah, and I'm going to take the zoom out. So, yeah, it is actually quite a nice outside model. A lot of doors. Excuse me. And yeah, GSX seems to work nicely with it. I think I picked the wrong position, right? That's not 185, is it? This is 186. Why did I end up on 186? I thought I'm on 185. Normally I'm on 185 and then I don't have that building. I just realized though that I made a mistake today. Anyway. So there is no cabin. So they decided shortly before, like I read a forum article about it, which is a couple of weeks old. They decided relatively short term that they will disable the cabin because pilots normally don't fly in the cabin. Well, yes, but what we pilots sometimes want to do is have some nice views through the windows, and those would now be quite unrealistic outside shots with also the outside noise. Well, anyway, there's no cabin. At least I couldn't get into one. So it's only the cockpit, and it's the cockpit that we're going to jump in next. So, and here we are, and that's what I told you. It is rather darkish in here. Unless the sun comes in, and that, according to AEROSOFT, is actually the new PBR textures and the new technologies they used. By the way, you have to make sure that you're using the latest and greatest of prepared. That means you have to have 4.5.13.32097, which is the 4.5 hotfix 2, as it's also called. But this is actually the version number. According to AEROSOFT, if you use an older version, and especially if you don't use 4.5, your bus most likely won't work properly, because they have now switched to use the latest features of prepared, which is not a bad thing, but it limits the number of customers that can actually make use of this bus. And unfortunately, on their forum, there are articles that still show the old system requirement, which is 4.3, and that is not correct. You can't run this Airbus with 4.3 prepared. You have to have 4.5, and you have to have the latest hotfix installed. I'm just quoting what I'm reading. Okay. Now with this Airbus comes the usual AEROSOFT tools stuff, the configurator and the fuel planner. I'm not going to go through this today, because we're going to do try and fly. But it is actually the same that you get for the smaller Airbuses. And the technology is compatible, which means FS2Crew has issued an update of their Airbus edition, of the AEROSOFT Airbus edition. And listen, if you have already the FS2Crew for the smaller Airbuses, get that latest update for free, and it will also work on the A330. Wow, I was quite surprised to see this. Now, I haven't got it activated yet, because I wanted to test the aircraft as is. Okay, but yeah, that is actually very nice. Okay, now typical for AEROSOFT, you can't really say anything about the quality of their inside modeling. As you can see, the door isn't opening, so there isn't even a click spot. There is no cabin. You can't get into the cabin. At least I wasn't able to get there. So it's actually very good modeling. Really looks great, and it seems that these new PBR textures and all, yeah, it's good quality. It's good quality. It's quite pleasing to the eye as well. So yeah, I can't fault them on that. That's really good stuff, I think. Alright, we are in the cold and dark mode, by the way. What does not go cold and dark, but always uses battery, is this thing. This is also something new, and that is the EFB. Now, I have been up and down this, and there has already been a hotfix, by the way. You can use the AEROSOFT updater to get the Airbus updated, and there's an option that you can set in the updater to also get experimental updates. And Mattis from AEROSOFT already mentioned for the EFB that you should activate, bless you, you should activate, that's the co-pilot having a continuous cold since yesterday. You should already activate this option for experimental hotfix and install the EFB hotfix, because it supposedly fixes things. Now, what is this piece here supposed to give you? Apart from the fact that with my renderers, a not too good picture unless you switch it into night mode, which works much better. It gives you a nice documentation, but not automatic flows. These are the flows. You also get that as documentation from them in PDFs. By the way, the documentation is as usual of AEROSOFT, and that is quite good. It is quite a good set of PDFs. And I recommend that you really get Volume 1. By the way, go to the forum and get the latest version of Volume 1, because I think they've made changes. So this document has already been updated, and when you go through the forum, you should also go to the forum and try and find things there. It's not the best, because they mix all the Airbuses into one, so it is hard to actually find things when you look for them. But it's a forum and it's there, and if you search long enough, I found at least reference to some of my problems. Some of them I was able to resolve, some of them are still there, so I'm waiting for the next hotfixes to get that sorted. So these are the procedures. Yeah, it's nice, but it's not automatic, so it's not something that you can use to automatically get your airplane set up. Then comes this thing. If you are a Navdata Pro subscriber, or whatever that's called, owner of a license, you have to use the outside AEROSOFT configurator. That's an external program, in order to log on to your Navdata Pro account or something, give a serial number, something like that. Supposedly Navigraph is supported here as well. Well, at the moment it isn't. What I understand is that they tried to support Navigraph and it didn't work, but now they have been in contact with the Navigraph guys, and they are now looking into this, so it could well be that in one of the next service packs or updates we're going to see Navigraph integration. To be honest, that's almost the only thing that I find useful here, apart from the EFF, which gives you your V1 rotation and V2, but you also get that in the FMC. You can place PDFs there. You can pull weather information. Now, when I tried that the last time, the first problem I had is I couldn't type in the airport. And that's a typical case of, there are things you should read the documentation about, because there was no way in hell that I would have ever found out how that works. And I know that other people had the same problem. You have to click here so that a little green light goes on, and as soon as you've done that, you can enter your airport and you say get data. And that's when I crashed when I did this the first time. Now obviously I've tried this before I started video recording, because the hotfix that I downloaded, the experimental hotfix for the EFB, actually seemed to have fixed this. So this time around, no crash. I actually get a lot of information about the weather. Don't forget to turn that off again. Then you get satellite pictures of Europe. This is actually current weather from Canada and from Africa, and they say that they would like to add more for other regions, but they're still looking for the data sources, I think. Then comes the docs. What you can do, by the way, is the briefings here, checklists. You can put your own documents in here. Unfortunately, again, this is hardly readable unless you use Shift 6. Was it Shift 6 or Shift 7? Hang on. Shift 6. In Shift 6 you actually get a reasonably readable version of this whole thing with the PDFs, because this gets rendered as a window, which you can, by the way, also undock and get outside the simulator. So here you have ways of configuring. I think you need to do this outside in a file or something. The same, by the way, for the links. There's a file that will allow you to configure links to certain web pages. For example, they have SkyVector here. There is no integration, unfortunately, there's no integration with your aircraft position. Then online unit conversion, that's a web page that allows you to do some kilometers to miles per hour conversions, things like that. Also quite nice, but again, I don't seem to be able to move the view, so I'm not sure why that is. I tried, but yeah, it's you can appear to only be able to see Europe here. I have to find out if there is a way to actually move the view, but it seems that the mouse is not, well, it somehow picks the mouse. So if I go on to London, but I cannot drag, you know, there's no way to drag here. And then there's flight aware. If you're into that kind of thing, you can look for real running flights for a particular. And as far as I understand, you can go into a file, somehow configured. I haven't done all that yet. And you can get your own links, your own web pages. But again, it seems to be limited when it comes to interaction with this. So if we go here, links, let's go to Windy again. What happens if I turn that on? Yeah, same thing. Okay. Inside the cockpit, unfortunately, it is a little bit over bright, you know. So that's a bit of a strange mix of too dark PBR textures and too bright of a display here. I'm not sure if that can be configured. I don't really worry too much about that anyway, because to be honest, unless the Navigraph charts get available here together with the position of the aircraft, yeah, this is of very, very, very limited use for me here. But it's nice to have it anyway. So, yeah. Okay, so what I would say is I'm going to run manual procedures now. And I'm going to use an external checklist, because as it is an AEROSOFT Airbus, if you say Shift 4, you get into this control MCDU. You know, it's a special one. That's only there to define states and doors and ground services and what have you. So at the moment we have several doors open. Also the ground service, we have traffic cones, we have the wheel chocks on, we have the external power on, the GPU, electric power. There's also a pushback, and you can integrate with GSX services, GSX2 by the way. In order to use GSX2, you also have to go and set some options. Not sure if I can get them together now, but you have to go to settings, and let me see. In the timings, you need to set the interval between waiting for your action message to 30. And in simulation, you need to turn on detect custom aircraft system refueling. And what was the other one? Enable, and now enable estimate button multiple trips. I think it's these settings here. So look at them. These are the ones. I forgot what the other one was that you need to check out. It's one of these here. Estimate passenger number, I think. Yeah, but one of them was definitely this here. Alright, okay. And then that thing would integrate with GSX, so I'm assuming if you would run the checklist, then it would do it. Then you have options. You can set up some options for your sounds, and especially the volumes. You could actually turn on background ATC. I'm going to leave that off now. You can turn on the flight crew, which I'm going to turn off now, and the cabin crew, so you get announcements. I'm going to turn these off because that's Mr. Sneezy, for example, which is a little bit annoying over time. Checklist. If you have the smaller buses, that's the exact same thing. Unfortunately, it doesn't yet work 100%. So I had a couple of problems with it, and it actually got hung. And yeah, it was, in the end, it wasn't very useful. Again, they know that there are some issues with the checklist, so let's wait for the next service pack, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be perfect at some stage. If you turn it on, you can turn on the checklist itself, and then you can manually control when the checklists are running, or you turn on the virtual co-pilot that they have, which will actually help you or set up your aircraft for you. Now, if you have as with the crew, you wouldn't need all that, and you would turn that off completely. So I've turned it off now for this flight because I don't think we need it. And because it's winter, I have actually a bit of a running nose, and it has just decided to start running while I'm doing a video. And because I'm not cutting these videos, I have to see if I can find some paper tissue or something soon. Anyway, return. Here are some aircraft options. The fly-by-wire on, the aircraft thrust bump. To tell you honestly, I don't know exactly what that does. I forgot actually. The tiller is on, the autorudder is on, and the weight unit is kilograms. You can switch it to pounds here. And then you can have some weather stuff. For example, do you take the SIM default? For example, like this. Then it would take the Hoppy network. I'm not sure if that already works. Because in the Hoppy network you would actually need to log on. Hoppy network is a ACARS network which exists for many years, and well, and amongst other features it also offers weather reports to be downloaded via the ACARS network. I don't think that works yet, because I read something in the forum that first of all they're not very happy with this, and secondly they're kind of looking into some ACARS CPDLS or CPDLC like solution, whatever that means. You could also use VATSIM weather, so I turn VATSIM weather on now, and that's it. Return. Yeah, so if you want to run the checklist, here you see the different phases. As I said, I'm not going to do this. And connected flight deck, they say, well, in theory it works, but there still are issues. There still are things that they haven't been able to test yet. That means you can try if you have someone else with the same Airbus. and you need some kind of VPN style tunneling, then you can connect, and this is shared cockpit base basically, and it works very well in the smaller Airbuses, at least it used to. It is built in, so it's something that AEROSOFT offers with the Airbuses, and that is actually quite good. But at the moment, it could be that it's not working at 100%. And then we finally have the load and fuel. Here you can set some passengers, so we're going to be very light. We're not going to have a lot of cargo, and we're going to take 10 tons of fuel, and I'm going to use the instant load feature. So you press this button, the instant load button, and it doesn't give a flying whatever. Okay, that's the passenger weight, average 84 kilograms. What about that instant thing? Maybe it's because GSX is so it says GSX integration. Oh, I actually didn't see that. The trim is up 0.8. Okay, and you get all the things. Now, very interesting. I think when this is done loading, we're going to see something popping out of this printer virtually. Virtual paper. So again, a nice feature. They actually went and simulated a printer, and we will see this when our unfortunately not instant loading is done. We still have some way to go, I think. What was that with the 2,400 something kilograms? I don't know. Anyway, while this is very slowly adding 10 tons, this is going to take time. We can continue here. I'm going to turn on the batteries, and I'm actually connecting the external power. And it took me some time to program my keys for the lights, and the way it looks is it again does not work. Yeah. But that's not the fault of the Airbus, by the way. That has to do with the fact that quickly check. Yeah, that's the GoFlight interface tool. I have GoFlight, really old GoFlight panels, but they still do work nicely. And I have this GoFlight interface tool, and although I have overwritten and programmed these special commands, these special events, it keeps giving me the old shit from the smaller Airbuses, which doesn't work here. So yeah, well, I'm going to do it manually for this flight. It's these kind of slightly frustrating things. Now again, problem here is it's very, very hard to read, extremely hard to read. I can't really see on my screen. I can't see where the position of that switch is because it is so dark. And I mean, we have daylight, it shouldn't be that dark. So I'm going to use the switch. It's now in the auto position, although it can't really be seen. So the nav light is on. People should know that we are in the Airbus. I put this into the arm position. I more guess where the switch is than I know. And that is a real pity. Because down here it is actually reasonably bright. Up here it's simply too dark, especially here. Okay, and that's not realistic on a day. But according to AEROSOFT, that's because I'm using PTA and have made changes. So I have the option to throw out my PTA settings and have an ugly scenery outside, or have a bright, or supposedly have a bright AEROSOFT cockpit. Well, if it's only about switches I can't see, I don't care. Okay, so let's continue. By the way, another problem that I had when I had it just simply freshly installed. By the way, when you install this thing, they say you have to reboot your system. Please do so. Because if you don't, you may experience a number of issues. Because they do install some Microsoft Visual C whatever runtimes, and they also install fonts. And in my case, the installation of those fonts went wrong. What happened, and other people had that too, here, and also this third MCDU for the setup didn't show anything. It was dark. And I remembered this from the small Airbuses from years ago, so I knew what I was looking at. So it was easy for me to figure out which of the fonts had to be installed with Windows, and I did this and it was fine. So if for some reason you see nothing here, it's either the font or what's actually quite normal. You see here there is sort of a round knob here, and if you turn this knob on the left, you actually set up the background lighting. And if you take the same knob, which is a bit further right, looky, there's your displays. All right, that's actually normal with Airbus. Why they have to start it turned off, I don't know, but there you go. By the way, other light switches are here, and here, floodlights, and because everything is relatively dark, I actually turn on those intake lights. Yeah. And then also the lights here come up, and that helps a little bit because now you can actually see the switches, because the switches have this little lighted line here. Okay, and it's easier to actually see where the switch is when you do that. Quite frankly, it looks like they, I mean, it took them so long to get this Airbus, and yeah, there had been quite a bit of things with it. It's not perfect. We're going to see a service pack pretty soon, I'm pretty sure, a larger one, because a lot of people had a lot of different types of issues. A lot of CDDs have been reported. A lot of autopilot doesn't follow the flight plan, and all kinds of things. The weird thing is, it's quite randomly spread over people's PCs what happens. For example, I first had the font issue, and then I had a CTD in the EFB. So, and then I had this issue where I couldn't. Well, actually, I could move my throttle levers. And I use FSU IPC, by the way, which is blamed for everything that goes wrong around access and things in the Airbuses, which is, you know what I'm going to say. That's nonsense. This actually works as it should. There's absolutely no problem with using FSU IPC. What happens though is, if you go and use aircraft states, if you do cold and dark and then you're firing up your Airbus, everything is fine. It seems to be that if you use taxi state or takeoff state, you immediately have a problem. If you use takeoff state, you will not be able to, at least I'm not able to get my engines spool up. They are running, they're in idle, but no matter what I do here, okay, nothing happens. In the taxi state, it looks like it's working, but the thing is, when I actually set up for takeoff, it stops working. I had that yesterday, which prevented me from doing my first flight, because I couldn't get off the flippin' runway. Alright, so at the moment I would not use these here. I have also stopped the turnaround state, because I also got this problem after some time starting from the turnaround state. So I've started with the cold and dark, and I really do everything myself. I also turned off the checklist, because I had a feeling that maybe the automatic co-pilot is setting something that then messes things up. And this is how I got my first flight successfully through. Oh, by the way, what we should also do is very quickly get the AEROS or ATIS set up into nav mode so that they can start aligning, because it takes quite some time. So at the moment I would start from the cold and dark and really go through the procedures. I know most of them by heart, but yeah, as you can see, there's good documentation also in the EFB if you need it. Okay, I think that's it for the moment with this one. Yeah, I had some issues setting up views, and I'm still not I'm still not really happy with the views. Yeah, I'm still working on that, because one of the problems with this view is, and it seems to have moved again, because I thought I had it saved like this, but maybe I forgot to actually save this in chase plane. Let's do that. Is that you don't see this here, and you really need, and I think then the middle is somewhere here now. You know, the center, the wheel center. But I'm still working on that, trying to figure it out for myself. You can see now that we still have to wait 6 minutes for the alignment, so we might as well do other things while this thing is aligning. And one of the things is that we go here and have a quick look around the FMCs, which are actually independent. Okay. Oh yeah, by the way. Well, let's turn on the radios. Theoretically, there should be one up here that you turn on as well. And yeah, none of the circuit breakers or a lot of the stuff up here. Reading lights, yeah, quite an interesting one. Is it on or is it off? Is it off or is it on? This looks strange. It gets dark when you turn it on. Yeah, anyway, there are quite a few buttons that wouldn't work, so not everything is coded. For example, this audio panel here, also this here, this is fake, apart from showing the data frequency here. Okay. This is the APU fire test, and you could also do your engine fire test. Which is still running. Okay. Alright, so now it's off. And you get the advisory here, but I don't think they have really coded the full advisory and all this stuff, status pages and things like that. But AEROSOFT always says, also with their smaller Airbuses, that they're doing procedures that are most likely relevant for a simmer and not everything that's realistic. If you want that, you need to buy a far more expensive Airbus from another company, which will then install a virus on your system. Anyway, so FMGC. Maybe we look at other things. AIDS doesn't work. INOP, yeah. CFDS is still INOP. Although, can we just clear that? SAT, ATSU works. It's the ATC menu. ATSU Dulkel. Okay, no, that is not fully coded. But here, in theory, and that is probably when the CPDLC stuff and ACARS stuff is implemented. You can probably departure ATIS. Yeah, since we haven't set up anything yet, I suppose we need to first define where we are flying to. So let's go to the init page here. We are flying from Echo Delta Delta Mike to Echo Delta Delta Mike. Return. Yo, init request. Yeah, nothing happens. The IRS init. Yeah, we're going to do that. Let me see. We are actually still aligning. Flight number is, well, actually it's test 2. I'm going to take my usual 35 cost index, and we're going to fly flight level 200, usual route. So, second page. Now, not sure what that does. Not much. If you click here, you get the current values, 128.5, 26. Alright. And you get the block fuel, which should be 10 tons. I think we have we finished actually? Have we finished? Let's see. Go to the load page. Yes, we have finished. And normally you get that printout, but somehow this time it didn't give it to me. Interesting. Ah, well. So let's see, we should have about 10 tons. Yes, we do. Okay. So that gives us, after a short delay, it gives us a trip time of 1 hour, 36 minutes, 24 minutes, 3, 2, 1 mine. Okay, and we have a final time of 30 minutes left, or of 1 ton. Yeah, so 10 tons is more than enough for where we are going. It probably can't calculate here things because we haven't really set up the route yet, or the route. Alright, in order to get your flight plan in, you click on EDDM, you go to the departure, we select 08 left, Anchor 9 Quebec is our departure, insert temporary, we can have a look at that. Okay, looks pretty good. You click on the last waypoint, then you use the next waypoint field, Akini. I don't have there it is. I don't have airways, so if you want to enter an airway, you go here via and so on. Okay, the airway, and then you need to define the exiting navigation point. Next waypoint is Ostis. Yes, it's unfortunately a little bit awkward because we have to keep scrolling up. And the next waypoint, which is also the entry for our arrival procedure, is Bamta. Very good. Now I'm using the destination airport, arrival 08 left, and I'm using the Bamta for Alpha via, just scroll up, Mike. Alright, insert temporary. Now let's have a look. We are taking off from Munich 08 left via Delta Mike 070, Delta Mike 077, Delta Mike 079. That's the departure, which goes until Anchor, and then we go Akini, Ostis, Bamta. There are some constraints. So we have a very short flight level 200, and then there is a top of descent, which is still a bit floating because we're not flying yet. Bamta rolls up. Here's a constraint. So we need to be descending to flight level 150 or below, I think. And then is the MIQ. And here's the arrival. Coming in via MIQ, or this is the transition actually to the approach. MIQ, Delta is 105 November, Delta 128 Lima, Delta 1, yeah, okay. And then comes Magat. Magat is a constraint of 5,000, so that looks very good. We need to make sure that we are really at 5,000 because of my first flight or attempted flight, I actually was too high, and that caused some nasty issues, unfortunately. By the way, what's this here? This looks like a damaged display. Interesting. Now it's undamaged. Weird. Alright. So, that's that. Let's see, are we aligned yet? Yes, we are aligned yet, which means that we can go into plan mode and first look if our route looks the way it should look. It actually does. Okay, so that's the usual thing. We fly here, we do this really, really sharp bend, and then we come back here. I really wonder what the Airbus will be like on that sharp bend. Okie dokie. That's it. That's very good. Quite like it. So we have 999, and it's not 1000. That's a weird thing. If you press B, that happens with other aircraft as well. It shows 1000, although it is actually 999. And how do I know this? Because I know that the airport elevation in Munich is 1480 and not 1500 something. So I'm not sure why that is. All right, so we can continue by going into the performance page. Now, we're going to use flaps 1. And it has already calculated we should use up 0.8, which gives us a V-speed of 124, 129 and 136. So we're climbing out with 136. We are very light for an Airbus. 129 is our rotation. 124 is our V1. And that's our flap retraction speed, our slat retraction speed. And this is the clean speed, which is currently at 180. Transition altitude 5000, that's fine. And it calculates the thrust reduction acceleration altitude, which is 1500 or so above ground level. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to do the following. I'm going to set a pre-selected speed of 250 for the climb, because I don't really want it to get too fast, because we're not climbing that much. And I'm also going to use the pre-selected speed on the en route part. That seems to work. What does not work is I cannot, or apparently I can't change the speed here, which comes to this weird situation that I'm accelerating when I go into managed mode again. Let's see if I can actually override this. I can. Oh, I didn't try that last time. Should have done that. Since we know already what the conditions will be and they won't change, I can already provide the wind is 92 with 4. Transition altitude 5000. Approach speed 131. Flap retraction 128. Slat retraction 156. And that's the S speed, and the clean speed is 180. I'm going to use the radar decision height, which is 200. You could also use the baro, but then you need to make sure that you have the correct barometric pressure, the QNH properly set up, and we're going to land with config full, not with config 3. We probably, with this light aircraft, we could also do a config 3, but I don't want to mess things up too much. You have to make sure that we are at 5000 at Magat. That did not work out for me yesterday, so I know what I have to make sure, and that is that we really descend in time, earlier than I did on my last flight. And that's it. Yeah, so there's actually this report page. Okay. Yeah. So we're fine. Now let's try ATSU again. AOC menu, departure ATIS. Not allowed. Received messages, airport weather. And we see EDDM 111. Yeah, well, that's real weather, okay. So because I selected VATSIM. If I would have selected that the weather comes from the simulator, actually we should really try that, but let me show you this interesting little feature. See this here? If you click here, it puts it there, and then you can open it, and it's your printed ATIS. Nice one, isn't it? There are some really nice features that they put in here, although not everything may work 100% perfect yet, but I think that is quite nice. So let's switch to simulator weather and let's try that again. If you right click on it, then it disappears. So I'm going to do a clear all. I'm going to select the departure ATIS. Here's the weather. And let's see. Yeah, QNH is 0999. 090 at 8 knots. Oh, I see. I must have got mixed up with my weather. So it's actually 090 with 8. Temperature is 10 and 12 degrees is the dew point. We are overcast. We have rain. Yeah. Very nice. So this is a nice feature actually. So what does that do? ATIS WX, ATIS meta. Received message. Clear all. Yeah. Operational flight plan data. Block fuel, taxi fuel. Send. Then the fuel. That's actually a fuel sheet. Again, you can print this. And if the CPDLC stuff would eventually be working, you can actually send it to somewhere. So here's our fuel report, and as far as I remember, you can also do a load sheet kind of thing or performance printout. Let's not get hung up on that now, but yep, it's a nice feature. It's not bad. So I hope that none of the things that I experienced yesterday shows up today. I'm certainly trying not to tap into those traps, but yeah, let's see. So I'm going to take I have a standard Airbus checklist, which also applies to the A330 in most cases. There may be one or two lines that are not, or that are different in an A330, but all in all, it's basically the same checklist. So cockpit preparation is completed, gear pins and covers are removed. Signs on auto ADIS are enough. Yep. The fuel quantity is 10 tons, and the takeoff data is set. The bar reference is set to 999 on. Not both sides. Yeah. Now, that is to the line. Before start checklist, to the line. Okay. Now what we can do is we can call for GSX. I'm quickly setting up the altitude. If you switch to 1000, it goes actually a bit easier. We're going to fly on flight level 200, and yeah, what I can't do with my hardware is I need to yet find a way to set managed or not managed mode. So we've got that. Let's cycle the flight director. Okay. Yeah, GSX. Prepare for pushback and departure. Nose is to the right, tail to the left. We don't want to start the engines before. So, we're running with 2000. I probably will forget to turn on the transponder. One of the reasons why I'm not using the checklist, by the way, is the fact that it got hung up on things like external lights, external lights, external lights, external lights, or in another case I had at the barrel, it was or asking again and again because somehow it didn't get it right with the barometric setting. There was something wrong, and it repeated, not as often as the other thing, but it repeated it all the time. So I think we are... I think they pulled all these things back, did they? Yeah. Well, by the way, some of the sounds have a repeating loop and unfortunately little ticks, and also there are some sounds that have a quick interruption, and you can hear that, a regular interruption of the sound. That's not too good. But yeah, it still sounds pretty authentic. It's nice. It's okay. It's just, it's a pity when you then hear certain sounds that have this kind of repetitive little fault in it. You shouldn't really be able to hear interruptions or ticks. But it's okay. It's not that bad, but you can hear it from time to time under certain circumstances. You hear it. Now, all we need to do is master and start. We've done the fire tests already, and I'm going now let the APU start up. By the way, you can click on the PFD and it will come out. You cannot click on the other ones. The navigation displays will not come out. That's like in the old buses or in the small buses. Unfortunately, the navigation display is completely married with the cockpit. There's no way to get it outside, which is a pity. But the other ones, unfortunately not by click. You need to actually go and use either keys. So Shift 7, and now that is a bug. And that's an unfortunate one. If you open the upper ECAM, we are running into self-test mode. Okay, so AEROSOFT, here's another one for you. Because now we have to wait 30 seconds that it finishes its self-test. That is a bug. That's not a feature. It's not like that in a real Airbus. Yeah. Max 40 seconds. Okay. Yep, and lucky enough, you do the other ICAM, and guess what happens? Exactly. Isn't that great? I love software. But not when it's doing things like that. Let's wait another 40 seconds. So, in other words, at the moment, don't get out these displays. By the way, that only well, I think it only happens once at the beginning. Shift 7. Yeah. So once it has done this for both displays, for both ECAMs, then it's okay. Yeah, I'm not sure if someone has already complained about that. The forum is a bit hard to find things in, you know. So maybe I should look for this, and if it hasn't been mentioned yet, then I should probably open, at least write it in the forum so that they know about it. They can open a ticket, a change ticket. Alright, now let's turn on the parking brake and let's get rid of all the outside stuff. Let's see, what about the APU? The APU is there. Oh, I have not. Did I not press the start? I thought I did. Maybe maybe that stuff with the ECAM has. Yeah, okay. Let's wait for a moment. So oh, I see the traffic cones are gone, the wheel chocks are gone. So the only thing we need to take away is the external power, but for that we need to wait quite long until you get the little green light. Then we can turn on the APU bleed. And now we can get rid of the external power, and it's automatically switched off in that case. So the beacon is on.
Locking gear.
And we have the push car. Ah, there he is. There he is. So he's locking the gears. In the meantime,
Departure check completed. Bypass being inserted.
we
Release
do
parking
the
brake.
before start below the line. Windows and doors are closed. Beacon is on. Thrust levers are in the idle position. Yes, and the parking brake is currently set. Which we're going to change now because we want to start the pushback.
Commencing push. All engines clear. Start at will.
All engines clear, start at will. Into start mode and then number 2. Yeah, and then there's another little sound fault because you have a cut. You kind of hear the spooling up and then there's a cut and then comes the other sound. I'm not sure that that's normal. I wouldn't expect this to happen during start. So there's a little not so nice sequence of sounds. To me that doesn't sound right. Because I always, every time that happens I look up because I think there's a problem with the start. Okay. Was the avail already visible? I actually didn't. I didn't watch out for that, but I think it is available already. Normally, you know when the engine is available, when the avail marker comes here, up here. So it is a complex airplane, and okay, so the middle is now here apparently, or let's quickly check. Yep. So it's roughly where the chrono is.
Set parking brake.
Set the parking brake. Parking brake is set, and we're going to the after start checklist. So, I should have turned these on before we start the engines, but as you can see, the engines started anyway. Why have we faults? Okay, let's turn off the bleed. Engine bleeds.
Unlocking gear.
We have faults. We have faults on the bleeds. That's not good. So, hi guys. We've got a cut here, something that I do very rarely in try and flies, because normally try and flies are like streams. I start, I end them in one go. You see everything I do and do wrong on the video, and I usually just publish the stuff that is big. I'm not into a lot of editing and cutting out problems and things like that, because to me, my try and fly and the videos that I make, apart from some exceptions, they are how I fly and do the simulation. Not everybody likes maybe the format, but well, there you go. I can't make it right for everyone, but I think most people do appreciate the way I'm doing it, I hope. So therefore, I've cut here because I was not able to get the engines running properly. No matter what I tried a lot. And for quite some time. That's why I'm cutting here, because it's no point that you follow me almost half an hour into trying to resolve this. Okay, I was getting increasingly irritated as well, which is also no point having on video. So I cut here, and there's a second part. I finally managed, I restarted everything, and for some reason, then it worked. I'm not sure what the difference between my 2 successful attempts versus my 3 failed attempts are. Not yet. Maybe it's GSX, maybe it's something else. I can't tell you. Okay. I just know I eventually got it to work, and I'm trying now to figure out, is there a way that I can start the Airbus that gives me success every time without having to go through all the startup crap and then realize it's not working. Thank you. I also don't want always to start with a startup, the taxi ready state or so, because sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. That's the thing. I have not yet established how I'm getting into the problem. That's a problem to me. Now, just quickly, this is a good add-on, so I'm not saying this is a bad add-on. It's just not 100% there yet. They have released it with issues, which is normal in software, and the developer in me has no problem with that because it's just the way it is. There's only so much testing you can do. I wonder though that things like that, and I'm by the way not the only one. I know of 2 other people in my Discord area that have experienced the same thing. Okay. As a developer, I wonder, why did they not pick up on this? How come? Yeah, I don't know. So, and even if it is not exactly the fault of the software itself, because this is software after all, you shouldn't actually, well, there shouldn't be a product that does this and the developers not knowing about it. You know, that is a bit strange to me. And as a customer, I am slightly pissed off because I've been spending an awful lot of time, quite frustrated with this add-on. Now, I'm pretty sure, and knowing AEROSOFT, they will get it right eventually. Yeah, there will be hot fixes coming out. They're working probably very hard now so that the majority of people can use this Airbus properly and without much CTDs and you know, and there are a lot of smaller issues which are not really important. You don't need them to successfully do flights with this Airbus. There are the odd larger problems. That would be one of them, I think. And as far as I understand, they don't yet know where this comes from. So I've been reading on the forum about it, and it seems other people got it too, and they're not yet clear where that comes from or how that comes about, you know, the combination of things that may lead to this. So if I'm lucky, I find out, but who knows. Anyway, this is a good add-on. I'm glad that we have it. I just need to get over my frustrations of not being able to use it properly, like the way I would like to use it yet, but I'm pretty sure it's going to come. There's actually a second hotfix out. I'm doing this little extra on Friday the 13th, and they have already updated. Not sure if that fixes my problem, but you can see that they're running these hotfixes. By the way, you need to switch to, as I said, I think, or I may say that in the second part, you need to switch your AEROSOFT updater, make sure that you have really the latest version installed. You switch this to experimental mode. Allow in the configuration, you can tick a little box that says experimental mode or experimental updates, and then install the experimental updates, because these are immediate hotfixes that they apply. These are not experimental as such for the Airbus A330. They actually fix things quickly for you so that you don't have to wait for a major release, which might actually take some time. All right. Okay, that's it. There's a second part, by the way, because I managed to get it working, restarting the simulator and so on, restarting everything basically. And then for some reason, the second time round, like it did actually with my first successful flight. First attempt, crap. Second attempt, after reloading everything, starting and all, good. Don't ask me how, but there will be a second part. We're doing a successful flight, and you will see how this Airbus fares also on a minimum spec rig like mine. That's it. Then we see you in the second part, I hope.